Welcome to Faith, Love, and Coffee, you guys. I am Trish.
Hey, y'all. Jamie here.
Hello, I'm Jeanette.
What is
Do
going
I
on
hear?
there?
Yes. What is it? What do I hear? Are those old tornado sirens, are they?
It's noon on a Saturday, and they test them every Saturday, and we've got one like 2 blocks away from here. So sorry.
Oh, wow. I'm like, oh my God, do we have to run for cover?
Yeah.
No.
So, and then they'll make their little announcement here in a little while, but it's really funny because they do it in English first, and then they try to do it in Spanish, and the Spanish is just so funny.
Oh my gosh.
Is it like no Sabo Spanish?
It sounds like it does not sound like a Hispanic person speaking Spanish. I'll leave it at that.
I hope we're on long enough to hear it.
Right?
Oh my gosh. This starts up again.
It needs to stop.
I thought it was going to be like, I thought it was just going to be that one time, but no. I mean,
it keeps going. Okay.
I know. I don't remember it being this
goodness.
long.
Well, at least we'll know you'll be safe. And you'll hear it. It's you're not too far from it. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. All right, well, y'all, today we are going to be talking about forgiveness. And that is a big, big, big word.
And has a lot of meaning.
It does have a lot of meaning, and it takes on many different forms too. So,
yeah.
Where do we want to start with this? I almost feel like I'm lost. I almost feel like there's so many. Okay, so let's look at this faith-based.
Okay.
So, as we all know, in the Bible, again, I'm not well versed on scripture and everything. Like, I'm not a guru of, what is it? Scripture and the y'all help me out.
And
the little
Bible verses, the
verses. Thank you, Jeanette. Verses, but I do know that one of the, like in the prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, and forgive us as forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Mm-hmm. And as we're also told, forgiveness is such a big thing, because, that is the way of life. And it's so hard. It is so hard to, especially when somebody really ticks you off, or they do something against you, or they do something against your family, and you're just like, listen, I may say that about my family, but you can't say that about my family. Okay. Yeah. Or something like that. And it's so hard sometimes to extend grace because we really don't know where their issue or their concept or whatever originates from. Right. So it's such a hard thing to do. And I know it's the right thing to do, and I've had to struggle with that a lot. But in the past few years, and I will say after my heart surgery, that word has come up so much in my life because I've had to do a lot of forgiveness, and not just forgiving others, but forgiving myself. I've held on to a lot of guilt, and I know that I didn't have to, but I struggled with it, so I mean, we can get into specifics later, but I mean, what do you guys think of the word?
Well, see, I think it goes back to what we've talked about in even previous episodes is we're so much harder on ourselves than, we probably should be or need to be. So like that guilt you felt or feel, same as me, like I'm not going to sit here and be like, girl, I've never felt guilty about anything. But it's harder, I think, on yourself. Other people you talk to about stuff, they're like, oh, well, that's not so bad. Or, you know what I mean? Like, and you're in your heart, you're like, oh gosh, it made me feel so bad, or whatever. But I think that once you start to forgive yourself, you start to feel better. I mean, I don't know about you, but I I went through a year of counseling talking about things, and I highly recommend therapy. It helped me because we talked about all those things, and it was like a weight had lifted. Now, do I still feel bad about some stuff? Of course, right? But I had to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it felt much better. Much better.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jeanette, just the other day on TikTok, you had a video and you actually had a scripture to go with it and all that good stuff. So those who don't follow you on TikTok, share.
Yes, please do.
It's Matthew 6 verses 14 and 15. The gist of it is God will forgive our trespasses if we forgive those who trespass against us. However, if we cannot forgive those trespasses against us, then God will not forgive us of our trespasses.
Wow.
And I know that's tough, because there are some things that you cannot, not that you can't forgive them, they're hard to forgive. Let me put it that way. They're very hard to forgive, right? And I mean, I know it eats away at your soul, like, because something will trigger and you'll be like, dang it. And then you can't let that go, right? So it just boils up inside of you. And maybe for the rest of the day, you are just like in this hole and you can't let it go. But if we don't forgive, then God can't forgive us. And that is kind of scary if you think about it, right? Because we can go every day, all day, ask for forgiveness. However, there's this one little thing that you're holding on to over here. I mean, God may not forgive us 100%, even though we think that he is, right?
Right.
It's almost like a double standard. Like you want to be forgiven, right, by God, but yet you are still holding on to something, but you expect God to be like, oh, it's all right, I got you. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of, it's almost kind of like a double standard that you want that, but can't give it. Right.
And I mean, maybe you give it to God and you talk it out with God, right? Because even though he's not talking back to us, he's listening to us. And he knows our hearts and everything, but sometimes he wants to hear it out loud from you.
Yeah.
Right. So you can sit here and you can yell at whoever you're mad at. Like I said in my video, you can write it all out, read it, burn it, walk away. Right.
Yes.
You don't have to tell that person that you forgave them, but you in your heart will know, hey, I have let that go. Like, I'm done with that. It's a thing of my past. I'm done. I'm good. And just move forward,
Yeah.
But on this other side of that, sometimes it is better to even call the person and tell them, hey, I've been holding on to this. I need to tell you this. I forgive you, that kind of thing. Because maybe they're holding on to that because they're like, oh my God, I hope that person forgives me. Oh my God, I hope that, and they're hanging on to that. Yeah. So, I really commend people who go through like these counseling sessions or these 12-step sessions or these 12 steps they have to take and stuff. I had a friend of mine come to me and she asked me for forgiveness and because of the way that she had treated me, but because of her illness, because she had an illness. So I had to take that into consideration because I'm like, what you did was pretty much unforgivable, right. But because she explained and I'm like, she was like, I really need to do this. I really need to do this. And I'm like, okay, well, now that I knew that her circumstances and everything that happened along the way, it was easier for me to forgive. And I'm like, I did forgive you, back then. So it really doesn't really matter. She goes, yes, but it matters to me and I need to get it off. I need to tell you about it. And that way you will know. And that way I can gain your forgiveness, truly gain your forgiveness, not just, passive. Right. So, and that was really, that is really brave of someone to do, to come forward and say what, their sin against you was.
Yeah.
And then you know, having to look them in the eye and say, I forgive you, you know. So, but that was very important for her too in her program, you know. So, but as soon as I said that, I could see just from that, like the nervousness and everything just washed away from her face. So, like, it was almost like you could actually see that being lifted off her shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
because then she was like able to breathe a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but now
yeah,
here's my question. Did you tell her first, like, hey, this really hurt me, and she acknowledged? Because, you know, some people don't acknowledge they've hurt you.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's things have been done to me and I've done to others that I probably didn't even know at the time it was hurtful or whatever. And maybe sometimes I did. But those times that I feel like I may have done something to someone and I was in another moment in my life, not paying attention, just like going through the motions and stuff. And I'm hoping someone would tell me, like, hey.
Yeah, she did tell me, because we were having lunch. We were having lunch with our kids, and this was really a few months after, you know, well, actually about 6 months to a year, because my healing took a minute, you know, from having my surgery. And I was like, what? And why weren't you what? And why didn't you blah, blah, blah? You're supposed to be one of my closest friends, and blah, 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 blah. And she cried in front of me and she said, I'm sorry. Now let's break that down for a second. She didn't say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. She just said, I'm sorry. There's a big difference in that. You can be sorry. Yes, you can be sorry that you affected that person the way you did, but you didn't ask for forgiveness. And then her coming back to me 3 years later asking for forgiveness, that was the deal breaker. So someone can tell you you're sorry, but they may not ask for that forgiveness. Right. Or they may not, or they may be an unspoken, you know, forgive me. Yes. It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same. To me, it's not the same. I'm sorry. I'm not speaking for every one of y'all. Right. And I'm not speaking to our audience in that way either. But to me, that's a big difference. You can be sorry all you want to, but until those words leave your mouth, will you forgive me? That's not.
Yes.
Okay. And you know, I'm sorry are some of the hardest words for people to say, let alone, can you forgive me? I mean,
yes.
Yep.
You know, that those words all together right there, some people cannot, like, it's just not in them. They'll just be like, we're good, right? And you're like,
yeah, that's a good one too. We're good, right? Like fist bump, right? Hey, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just have a very strong, I guess, opinion of that, because I have said I'm sorry lots of times.
Yeah.
But I've not really been the kind of person to say, hey, can you please forgive me on this? Especially like transgressions and everything that I have with like my family, like with Matt and Trinity. If I've done something, okay, I'm sorry. But I never say, hey, can you forgive me that?
And see, okay, I have a story for y'all. So like when Devin was graduating from college, his dad reached out to me on Facebook Messenger. And mind you, I have not seen his dad since Devin was like in 4th grade. And I don't even think we passed each other when Devin was in the hospital with his appendix. Anyway, long story short, he messaged me and we both did things back 25, 26 years ago, right? And we both like apologized to each other. We both were like, yeah, we were young and dumb, you know, whatever. But neither one of us asked the other like for forgiveness. Like now that I'm thinking about it, that was like I think the biggest one recently, of someone who I know I hurt him, and I apologized, but I never was like, do you forgive? You know what I mean? Like, I hope you can forgive me, or what, you know what I mean? And like, it didn't occur to me at that time. And of course, now Devin's going on 3 years since he's graduated. But I'm not about to reach out now and be like, please. But I think we both at that point just were kind of like Jeanette said, we're good, right? Like, and moved on. I mean, so I'm hoping though, if someone needs that part, like will you forgive me? I forgive, you know what I mean? Like that would be just discussed and not overlooked, right? Because some people like just think that we're all good type thing works as a,
Yeah.
No, because I'm good with him. I don't need nothing else.
But when you say you're good with, okay, like let's say whatever, or somebody asks for forgiveness, what if somebody doesn't say, oh yeah, I forgive you? Or what if they come back and say, no, I'm still upset with you? Like, then what do you do? Because, you tried, right? And then they rejected you. So what do you do then? Do you try again another day, or what do you do?
Yeah, that's one of those things that you have to go back and say, okay, I understand that and I respect that, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to keep on trying to get in your good graces and try to gain your trust again and get your forgiveness for what I've done. So,
but now does that go for certain people, right? Because like there's people I really don't. I mean, like we said, we're sorry. We're good. I'm going to keep saying that all day, Jeanette. We're good.
We're good.
I don't need to like try anymore. They don't need to try with, you know what I mean? Like, again, like last week's episode, are there certain people you would like extend that more to than, you know what I mean? Because like, I wouldn't go to a coworker and be like, girl, please forgive me. Please, like, over and over.
No, not over and over, but a good thing, I guess the good rule of thumb would be like pray about it and ask Heavenly Father, I've reached out, what can I do at this point? That's one of those things that I've forgiven them, I have asked for forgiveness, please forgive me for trespassing against them, that kind of thing, because he already knows that you've already tried.
Yes.
And if it's their heart being hardened, there's not a lot. It's almost like Pharaoh and Moses,
Yes. All you can do is pray for them to have a okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. What if they ask for forgiveness, right? Like all this is just coming to me right now. What if they ask for forgiveness and you forgive them, and then 2 weeks later they go do the same crap that they have asked for forgiveness for, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. So you've already forgiven them twice for the same stuff, but this is their pattern, I guess, and they do it over and over. Like, do you still forgive them every time, or do you just go like, yeah, we're good?
Well, just like the good book says, 7 by 70, however many times.
You forgive and then you move on. You don't hang around for any more of those things.
And there is a season for everything.
Speaking from personal experience on that one.
Yes.
Those patterns. I forgive you up to, how many did you say? 7 by whatever?
7 times 70.
Well, I counted 7 and you don't get 70. That's it.
She's
that's hard. Hey, listen, being like you, Jeanette, Jeanette, because and you too, Jamie. I mean, you've been married for 8 years or almost 8 years, and I've been married for almost 25 years, and those patterns are patterns, But then we try to break out of those patterns, and we try to break out of those chains, and sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So that's just something like, okay, I already know that's what he's like. So, it's just one of those things. Because I will tell you, I love my husband, love my husband, but he is the most selfish man on this earth. I mean, he is very selfish. Okay. We already know this, but I love him and I forgive him. And if I am his wife, and just like it says, I have to follow him. So I'm doing what I've been told.
Okay.
in a
see,
way. But I did. But again, if this house does not work out in a year, we've been given permission to look in Texas. So,
well, I also know from talking to you, and you just mentioned how, I told mom, and I think I've told other people, I guess I didn't take my marriage vows as seriously as other people. And I'm sorry. I'm saying that on live. It is what it is. Because, and I think this is the difference. I was single a long time. Does not mean I didn't date anybody. Does not mean I did not have a good time and do some inappropriate things. I was single a long time. So for me, certain things I just was like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want this to be, the patterns are just becoming too like frequent. And that's not how you were when I married you. That's not what I recall. Right. So as time goes on, like, and then of course we have no kids. You guys have Ariana, Jeanette, you have your girls. Like, so there's different factors. Right. But for me, I guess like I got to a point where I was like, I don't need anybody messing with my peace to that degree. Not in your situation. Not in your situation. Yours is a totally
honestly, when you think about it, I'm going to say this on live. Oh my God. So, we had an infidelity at the very beginning of our marriage, or a few years into our marriage.
Right.
That was extremely hard to forgive and not to keep bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that as even 30 something years old, sometimes you just don't think like an adult. And, I kept throwing it back in his face, and I kept throwing it back in his face and all this kind of stuff. And I had a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, say, you haven't truly forgiven if you keep bringing it up.
Yeah.
He said, honestly, you need to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Once you let it go, because, my husband, because Matt has been, like, from the day that, I found out and everything else like that, and he understood the frustration and everything else. There's not one day that he did not try to gain my trust again.
Right.
And yes, he did gain that trust again. Of course he did,
Mm-hmm.
because I would be married to him right now.
Yeah.
And we made it very clear when Trinity was born, or Ariana. Her name is Trinity Ariana. Okay. Once she was born, it was more than just me.
Mm.
So I'm like, just remember that if this happens ever again, I'm just going to tell you this once. If this happens ever again, it's not just me. You have a child that's involved now.
It's her too. Yeah.
It's her too. And so this man has bent over backwards for me. And there are times that I've realized that, and sometimes that I didn't give him the grace that he deserved. So, and that's very hard. Now that, like, being that, you guys, in a marriage is so difficult. And there's not, and I even think about it, and that happened 20 something years ago. God Almighty,
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't faze me like it did, back then. It's a fleeting thought.
Yeah.
And then it just, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I say that only because, there are some things that he puts in front of us that, like Wing Chun, or this mannequin here that he plays with at night, or whatever, that, this thing that he does for Wing Chun. It's a wooden, this apparatus, that we are taking with us to the next house. So we're trying to figure out where we're going to put that thing, and the rower and all that. Anyway, but so it is different stages of your life, your marriages, your relationships, your, everything is like that, where some of these are really big, there are epic moments in your life that, sometimes you look back and you're like, God Almighty, how did I get through that?
Yeah.
how in the world, and it's faith. It's just that, and I got the biggest compliment from Matt not too long ago when he said, I don't think I've known anybody other than my father with so much faith as you do, as you. And I'm like, thank you. I said, because I love my God and I spend time with him every morning. Well, and throughout the day, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big deal. The trust is, and maybe that's another thing we need, another episode we could talk about is trust.
Yeah.
But trust and everything, is at that forefront, love, and, but without that trust and without that commitment and everything, there's no love. And once that comes into the picture, it doesn't have to be all consuming. Oh my God, I can't live without you. It's
Right.
a gentle love,
Yeah.
and it's just something that takes you through the years. So
Agree. Thank you for sharing that. That's kind of like, whew. That's hard to put out in the atmosphere.
Yeah,
that
that
is.
And that's a very vulnerable thing to talk about. And you're not the only one who's
Exactly. And that's, our thing is here, and this is why we're doing this. If you could reach one person that wants to talk about it or, needs a helping hand or whatever, then that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're here for. So there are things that happen in all of our lives that we can talk about on this show, and people will be like, what?
or they'll be like, oh my gosh, I can so relate to that,
Yeah. But then that's what we want to do. So, oh my gosh. But yeah, that's one thing that happened in my life that I really had to extend that forgiveness, but it took me years to actually know what that meant on that level. On that level. Yes. What about y'all? Anything y'all want to say or talk about?
I'm sitting here trying to think. I know that there's a Bible study by, I think it's Lisa Turkeroost, I think is how you pronounce her name, and it's Forgiving What You Can't Forget.
I read it.
I read it several years ago, and so I need a refresher. I mean, it's been probably when it first came out, 3-4 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
But it's been like I went to Mardell the other day, and it's like everywhere, right? And I'm like, is that like a sign? Because I keep seeing it too, like in my Facebook feed. I'm like, is this a sign that I need to go in there and redo the study in this time, like in the era that I'm in or whatever? Is it a sign saying, hey, you need to go back and refresh your memory on this or something? But
yeah,
I remembered I enjoyed it when I read it, but maybe I need to go back and read it again.
Yes.
Can you drop that in the link? Can you drop it in the comments or Yeah, that'd be great. So we can have it like
there's another
resource.
One too, Jeanette, by that same author that's after that, Forgiving What You Can't Forget. I'll pull it up because I read that second one too, or that other one, and the next one was like, what?
I know she's got some really good, she's got amazing studies, like Beth Moore. I don't know if y'all have ever done a Beth Moore one, but they just write, and they're women, and so there's stuff that they write in there where you're just like, was she stalking me? Did she see when this happened to me?
That's good, y'all.
Yeah,
I need to go look at those books then too.
Yes,
I do need to go look at those books. Yes.
I mean, think about our parents, their generation, and then like our grandparents' generation, right? Our families, there was a lot of infidelity or whatever, and the women just stayed. Like, some of those men did not hide it. They flaunted their little flings at the time, brought them around.
You mean the men?
The men would bring the women around,
right, parading their women around, with their wife in the background.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm
gosh, what a long way we've come.
I'm guessing they forgave the men, or I mean, I can't ask some of them because they're no longer alive, right? But I'm sure that there had to have been some kind of forgiveness, right? I mean,
I don't know if it
you
would have
can't.
been forgiveness or perseverance and endurance, because that's the way that they were back then, and the divorce was absolutely out of the question,
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know. So I, I really wish I may have to bring my stepmom on one time too, because
Yeah, because I would
she
like to
experienced that
know
as
some of
well,
those,
and
yeah,
yeah.
some of those situations that happen. Like, I would like to know, how did you overcome that? Like, how did you forgive it 100%, or did you just, okay, we're good, so that you could not be angry? You know what I mean?
This would have actually been a good episode for my mom to be on too, because she's
Yeah.
gone through several of that stuff. And but let me tell you, my mom has had a grudge against my dad since they divorced, and she actually told me that she's going to go to hell because she will never forgive him. And the man is gone. I mean, he's my father is he passed away a few years ago. But I'm like, okay, well, he's gone, so you
Was that in
can,
the private?
you know.
I'm sorry, y'all. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I put that in the private chat. Let me put it in
I
the
think
comment.
you did instead of the comments
And
on the top.
it's not a link, but it's just the name of the book. The other one,
Yeah.
Jeanette. The other one that
Yeah.
Good
Boundaries.
boundaries and
There
goodbye.
you go.
But it's after, I think it comes after that, forgiving what you can't forget.
And it did put it both in the Facebook and in the
Okay.
YouTube, so that's great.
So with that, like, if, okay, like your dad passed away and your mom says she can't forgive him, right?
Right.
Because there's some stuff with my mom too that she says like she hasn't forgiven my dad, but they're gone, right? So like, and I try to tell her this, like, you need to figure out how to forgive so that she's not holding on to it, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So like, you have to, it can still hurt you, it can still whatever, but if you don't let it go, you don't heal. You don't heal. Like, I've been in an abusive relationship before, not my marriage, but back in the day, um or whatever. And have I forgiven that person? Kind of, sort of, in a way. I need to really go back and reevaluate that. But even if I forgive them in my personal little bubble here, it's still going to be there every now and then. Like, something's going to trigger it because I'll see something on TV and it'll remind me, or whatever. But it's like, you're always probably going to think about it because something's going to trigger it. But do you forgive that person and just let it go so you can heal from it? And then maybe if you are healing, maybe those triggers aren't so bad, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. I was in a very abusive relationship. What, for 4.5 years? Was it 4.5 years or 5.5? 4.5 years, right, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Something like about 4.5 years. And listen, I mean, after that, everything was kind of amicable. After he moved out and everything, or I helped him move out. But I forgave him, but I would actually really like, I've tried to find him on Facebook so I could actually tell him that I forgive him, but also to thank him, because I lost a part of me in that relationship. A part of me that I know that I was a much stronger person that I was giving on, and I could have walked away at any time that I wanted to, anytime.
Right.
But I stayed because I was young and dumb and thought that I could change somebody, and I couldn't. But he also showed me the kind of person or the kind of man that I did not want in my life, so that, I wasn't going to run to the next person who was going to do the same damn thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but what's so crazy? I'm going to jump in real quick. What's real crazy, Jeanette, is that, like, after all that happened, my sister and I went to pick him up. Remember? Mm-hmm. They were just now friends at this point. There was nothing, zero, right? And I remember when she told me, I said, "Are you kidding me? We're going to pick up who?" And for what? And so that's when I knew that she had already started like the process of not maybe telling him, of course, because she hadn't, but that was like the ultimate turnaround. I would say, like, this is what happened. And she even told me, she was like, you know, I don't remember you said forgiving him, but you were like, it's okay. We're just friends. There's nothing, you know, but I was like, but he did all this stuff. And you were like, he was sick, which he was, remember, he drank and he was right. So she at that point was trying to even like convince me, because I was like, who are we going to get? Let me get my bat so we can like do some, you know what I mean? So even she was more forgiving at that point than I was, because I don't think I could have done that.
Well, and at that point in time, I was just like, okay, I'm going to help him. I'm not enabling him.
No.
But then I released him too after that. And I had not seen him or anything else after that.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, thanks for helping me out. And I'm like, okay, you're welcome. See you later. Bye.
Yeah.
And then that was it. I've never seen him again, ever. Nor has he ever reached out to even try to, you know, say, you know, she asked me for help again. Because I think at that point in time, he was like, okay, she's done with me.
Yeah. Oh, it was clear.
It was clear. It was very clear that I did not want anything to do with him. So
it was clear.
Yes, very.
Yeah. But I don't know too many women who could do that. Just at that point be like, okay, he needs my help. I'm gonna go. Like, that's, you know.
But for our parents, oh my gosh, there's so much in their lives that we don't know, that I'm sure that my mother's still harboring some sort of secret still. Because you never know. But listen, like, I know there must have been hardships back in the day. I know there must have been, you know. I mean, my mom experienced infidelity with my dad, or my dad is the one who cheated on her. And then with my stepmom too. I mean, it's just, how do you, I mean, I know they may be listening, and forgive me, my family, if y'all are listening to this, but we all know it's true. So it's all out now. Okay. Thanks. But, and I'm not trying to sweep that under the rug, because it's something serious, and how the women actually survived back then. You know, my stepmom is really not that, she's not that old, but she's like 68, I think now. So, she's like 14 years older than I am. Oh, she's almost going to hit 70. So, yeah. I mean, she's really, so she's just about to hit 70, if she's not hit it already. I think she's 69 this year. So, but yeah, I just don't know how they did it. And then I was told, oh, well, we're bound by the Catholic Church. We can't get divorced. And I'm like, what? So, that was another thing that
I know,
what I was told.
I've talked about it with, I'm going to call them boomers, because that's what they are. They're the baby boomers. Okay. And many of them did not have choices and options like we do, right? School was not really an option for some, so they weren't able to go and get any type of education. Some didn't even graduate from high school, unfortunately. You know what I mean? It's just, that was the time. And so with women's lib, you know, thank you for that. Although I think I would have made a pretty good stay-at-home mom. But women's lib kind of changed some stuff. You know what I mean? And it just made it not, I still don't condone divorce and separation and all that good stuff. I'm not like a proponent of it. Like, I'm not about to walk around with the whole thing. But I feel like at this point, because we do have those options, it's like, whatever works for you, whatever you have to do. And they didn't have that. Their parents were like, you're going to get married, and this man is going to take care of you, and you're going to stick to it no matter what. Mm-hmm. And y'all, I don't know. I know Jeanette probably knows, but I've heard some stuff about some of our lady family members who had things happen to them and stayed. And I cannot, it literally shook me to my core when I found out one of our I call your mom my aunt, Jeanette, even though she's really not. She's my mom's. She's like my cousin, far removed, or whatever the heck they say. But one of our other cousins, right? Our mom's cousin. She's passed away now. When I found out what her husband did to her, like on their wedding night, and after that, and and I just found out, like right now, 2025, and I was like, what? So the stuff they put up with, like, no wonder they're hardcore gangsters. Like they are like. Seriously, they are becoming, like, Jeanette, more sassy. The boomers are becoming more sassy because now they're like, I don't have to put up with what I used to have to put up with. You're not going to tell me what to do. Like, I am in shock by some of the stuff they had to put up with and had to.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like my dad's dad, my grandpa on my dad's side. He had, so I don't know the whole story, so I probably should find out, but I don't know if he had an affair with this woman and she had kids or what happened, but my grandmother raised these kids as her own.
Stop.
She did. She raised them. I think there was 3 or 4, because, back in the day there was a gazillion kids, right?
Yeah.
She raised them as her own children.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That is crazy. Y'all
Could you
ever
imagine
watch
that
the
right
movie
now?
Fences?
Yeah. Could you
Have
imagine
ever watched
right
the movie
now?
Fences? That's just almost like that.
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could do that.
I'd walk out the front door with just what I had on my back, what I had on me,
Yeah,
with my purse, my social security card, and I'm out.
Yep.
We are not good. We are not good.
No, we are
I don't
not
think
good.
I love anybody enough for that. I don't think I love anybody enough for that. Hey, and Lord forgive me for saying that if that's a problem.
It was common back then, though, like that they knew that their husband had a child out of wedlock, from an affair or whatever with this person, and like the women stayed and had 3 more kids of their own, like
yes.
And how hard is that now? How hard would that? Okay, so today this is like one of those things for us in this country is one of those things that's unforgivable, right? But that happened in the Bible. That they had multiple wives. That they, and even in the Middle East, that is still practiced today.
Mm-hmm.
So, how, that's so hard. Like, it's easier for us to forget, easier for me to forgive today than I would have been back then. So now I understand, because now you're like understanding, like, oh my God, if I were my mother, that would be so difficult to overcome, or raising somebody else's kid. I can't. Even sometimes, and this is why it's sometimes it's a fleeting moment for me when I talk about like when the infidelity happened. I fear that I'm going to get a knock on the door one day with somebody coming up saying, "That's my dad," because of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and here it's been like over 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay, you can stay. I'm leaving.
Y'all can have each other.
I'm like, go, let's go. I think that would be the straw. I think that would be.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be tough. Oh,
that would be the thing for me. I don't know if I could handle that. I could understand I don't understand the infidelity.
Yeah.
But I couldn't understand a child from that.
It's something. Yeah.
I couldn't. I just couldn't.
Yeah. I think that's a bigger blow than
that would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the act of what happened, right? But like that
exactly.
Would be, but I think too. What about, like, for me? I think when I was younger, I accepted a little bit more than I do now.
Mm-hmm.
As I've gotten older, I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't know how much more time I have left. Because like when you're in your 20s, you think you're like, nothing's going to happen to you, whatever. As you're getting older and you see stuff, like, oh, dude, I may not wake up tomorrow. I could pass out right now. So like, I'm not I'll forgive you and we'll move on. And I'm still like, hey, we're good.
Mhm.
But I don't think anything like that. No.
It is hard to do, but we know that it's something that we should do and that, we're asked to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we also have to forgive ourselves because you're like, oh my gosh, I was so stupid. I did blah 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 blah, or I put up with blah 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 blah. But do you forgive yourself for it, for being that naive, that dumb in that time? Or like, have you given yourself grace and forgiven yourself and moved on for that? Or does it trigger your brain every now and then? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that.
There's so much I could tell y'all right now,
Okay.
but we got so much time. Okay.
Look, so let me see if I can pull it up. Today's Faith, Love, and Coffee Facebook post that's coming tonight. I may have already deleted it, but it's about forgiving yourself because of what we're talking about right now. But it mentions when you were younger and you really didn't know any better, like, you know what I mean? To forgive yourself for that, because you didn't know, you know what I mean? And I don't have it here, but I put that, of course, for later because of this. But when I was in therapy, Jeanette, good question, because when I was in therapy, the therapist told me, you have to forgive yourself for things you did before your brain was even fully developed. There were some things I did because they claim our brains aren't developed until you're like 25, 26, like fully, right? So you make some dumb decisions or whatever. And a lot of what I had done was at a time where I don't even think I was allowed to be drinking alcohol. That's how young and dumb the things I did, right? And so so when she told me, you have to forgive yourself, like you have to, because I was literally, every time we talked about certain things, I was crying. And she was like, oh my gosh, you have to forgive yourself. Like, stop right now. Like, this is too much. You know what I mean? Like, no, you're beating yourself up. And so some of that I say, I was so young and dumb. You know what I mean? And so now sometimes I say, man, I was kind of older and dumb. Like, where do I draw the line? But like, I think part of me looks back and says, okay, I really was young and dumb, like 20, 21, like stupid. And so I've tried to look at it that way. Like, Jamie, you really, yeah.
Which is really funny you say that because the relationship that I had, that abusive relationship that I had, ended when I was 25.
Yeah.
Ended when I was 25.
Yeah.
And then it took me 3 years to find myself again.
And that's a shame. That's a shame that somebody takes that, like,
Yeah.
But it happens. And, and it happens. It's not just women that it happens to. It happens to men too. I mean, if that means it's a relationship with a woman who is very abusive to them, or men,
yes.
Or and even if, when you think about it too, our parents sometimes shame us to where we feel the same way too. And that's something hard to forgive as well. It's not just us being in relationships, and we're talking about, there's stuff, y'all. That we have to forgive our parents, because our parents have, weren't the epitome of parents, but then who is, because we don't have a book to guide us. And even if we did, we'd probably, anyway. But oh my gosh, there's so many. Even our siblings and our cousins and our extended families, and we could go on and have a series about this on its own. Okay.
But the sad thing is some of those people don't realize that they've hurt us. You know what I mean? Like, to them, it was oh, she's all right. She knew I was kidding, or I shouldn't have to explain, because that's how it goes, right?
Right.
But yeah.
But would you want somebody to come and say, like, hey, like, if I hurt your feelings, or if I offended you, I'm sorry? Because not everything, y'all, I feel like you have to ask for forgiveness for everything. Like, dude,
No, I
we
mean,
all day long. You know, because
right.
we hurt each other like indirectly. You know, you say something, and you're like, oh, dude, really? Like, I'm
Mhm.
gonna tell y'all a story. Mom and I walked to HEB one day. Mom called me the B word right there to the lady checking us out because I was trying to pay for the food. I was trying to pay for food. And I said, she said, forgive us. I'm just arguing with this B. And she called me the B word. And I said, oh, yeah, forgive me because I was trying to pay for the groceries here. That's what we were arguing about. But she literally called me the B word in front of the lady at HEB within the last 6 weeks. And so somebody else may have taken that. Now, it did for a minute. I was like, did she really just do that? Like, I came home and thought about it, and I was like, okay, let's think about this. But then I was like, you know how mom is. I just let it go, right? But somebody else may have been like, hold on, wait a minute. When did I become a bee? Standing in line. Like, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's where you have to like figure out, is it worth it to even say anything? Is it,
Yeah.
you know, I know she was kidding, but was she though? She may really think I'm a bee.
You know, that is so funny. Not funny that you say that, but you're like, my dad did the same thing to me at Mark's funeral. So he went up and we were
Oh,
talking
Lord.
to one of his brothers who came in, you know, of course, to be there for us. And he was sitting down and my dad had me by his side and he goes, you know, Mark loved, you know, Pat so much. He said, but sometimes he would get so mad at her because he'd be like, this bitch doesn't even call me, blah, blah. And I got so offended because I'm like, first of all, I don't think that Mark would have said this bitch would have. I mean, you know, and I'm
Yeah.
like, and the man's right there. He's dead. He can't get up from the damn coffin and, you know,
Defend himself.
defend himself.
Yeah.
So, and I was so offended, you guys, because my dad actually, those words left his mouth claiming that my brother, my dead brother, who was right there in the coffin,
Yeah.
said that, oh, this bitch. And I'm like, okay, well. And then I went after that. I went and told Max and Joe, and I was just so offended by it. They were like, "Wait," they're like, so they went to Dad and they said, "Cool it," you know.
Yeah.
That really hurt her feelings that
Yeah.
you said that, and we don't even know if Mark even said that,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So that just really, and so I understand what you're what you're saying because I'm like, did he just say that in the middle of the funeral? So I
I wonder
was like,
if that's a boomer thing again. Here I go back to the boomers. Sorry if you're watching boomers.
has your mom ever called you a biatch?
No,
Or to
Yeah.
anybody saying this biatch, blah, 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 blah?
no.
Girl, I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have said that to her, like, Mom, so and so was being, but I don't say, you know,
The
I
B
won't
word.
do
Yeah.
that. So my mom is like, you can use another word. And I'm like, no, Mom, I really can't.
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
So,
So yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you just kind of, some stuff you let go, and some you're just like,
Yeah.
ooh,
I mean,
really?
you guys, all we can do is try our best on forgiveness. I know it's hard and,
Yeah.
you know, but also we probably don't think about, you know, what that other person is going through and what brought them to whatever it was that hurt you or, you know, whatever transgression they did against you. And, you know, you don't know the path they were walking on. So sometimes it's easier to just let things go. You
Mhm.
know, that's at least that's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's my last thought for the day. So y'all have any last thoughts before we
Well, the other thing I've heard about that is, I've heard this a lot: hurt people. So you're right. You have to think about where that person has been, what they've gone through, what they could be going through, and just kind of like, it's a give and take situation, you know?
Yeah, but also, you know, you have to remember that words hurt, and you once you say it, once you've let it release your mouth and your lips, you cannot take it back.
No.
So you can
Yeah.
ask for forgiveness all day and the person might forgive you, but guess what? Those words are still going to always be there,
Oh yeah.
you
Oh
know?
yeah. And they meant it enough to say it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
even though they're like, oh, I didn't really mean it. Well, you said it, so you must have meant it.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to say that all the time when somebody be like, oh, I was just joking. But I'm like, no, you thought it enough to like let me know. So I don't know about that jokey stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But anyway, y'all stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining us today. Even if that means that you join us after the fact and you see our video, if you have any comments or anything, please leave them for us. We love it when you do that. And share for anybody else who needs, this kind of interaction, or you want to just become part of the group. And if you are listening, we are looking for guests to come on with us and share, whatever's on their mind. So, with that, let's go ahead and do the little closing, which is keep faith, spread love, and savor every sip of life. Until the next time, take care and keep brewing positivity. We'll see you guys later.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.